So, what I was gonna say about this on my last video, what I'll do is, I played it reverse and I played it forward, and I'll split it between the two. And last time I talked about how 1 raised to the power of 0 times 1 raised to the power of infinity equals 1 raised to the power of 1. Because I've been spending so many years trying to figure out, like, how do you get from 1 to the 0 to 1 to the 1? Because if you're dealing with the complex plane, it's such a bitch. Because on the typical Cartesian plane, you got your x and y. But then on the complex plane, you got your x and I. Or sometimes x and iy. So, like, any point on the complex plane equals ax plus biy, or iby, whatever. And all of that is rested on a great assumption, and that great assumption is that planes exist. But what really exists are points in 3 dimensions, and here and there, planes are approximated. It just so happens we live at a scale where planes are approximated. And that approximation is very, very, very useful. But because when we're dealing with 0 and infinity and 1, right?
What I mean is this, so you'll have to bear with me.
Mathematicians, and we need more symbologists. For instance, in this image,
to the 0.
So blue is streaming up at your right hand, 2, and blue is streaming down at your left hand.
1.
Now, of course, you get that blue hot flame.
How do we get from
coming
here
up on the
to there?
Left? But I'm working it out symbolically. But if you're into if you're into math, and if you're into symbolism, like, you have to be a little bit into math. Like, I'm not even that good at math, but like, I'm enough into it to know that, like,
so if we're talking linearly, we're just saying, how do we get from
0
here
divided by infinity equals
to
1,
here?
And
it's
infinity divided by 0 equals 1. Like,
it's a shit
that's
question.
Super important, but these ones are a little bit different.
Then we say the square root of 1 equals 1 and negative 1
to the 0 times,
which implies
1 to the infinity equals 1 to the 1.
So when I say
1 to the 1 times 1 to the 1 equals 1 to the 2.
Whenever I'm talking about 1, I am talking about the unit
position, but the dynamics of that is so
which is 1
different. So different.
And
But anyway, if you're into math and
but
into
is a special
what I want to say about this
of a kind of root of 1.
You can see that
simply
there are
the fourth
quadrants,
root of
even
1.
though the
complex plane
negative y quadrant
in the complex
is
unit
stretched
circle
far below. You can see in this image that the
to my mind
positive x
is an
positive
infinite
y quadrant
rational,
is blue,
not
and
real,
the negative x and the
in the way
negative
we
y
define those words
is blue.
Mathematically,
while the negative
we could
x,
define them
positive
otherwise,
y, and the
philosophically, politically,
positive x, negative y are white. That should make one think.
But there are infinite roots of 1. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. How do I get from 1 to the 0 to 1 to the 1? It's a huge deal because 1 to the 0 is this point, and 1 to the 1 is the entire circle Whoops. Well, kind of like that. 1 to the 1 is the entire circle ending at the starting point 1 to the 0. How do we get from here to here? One to the 0 times 1 to the infinity equals 1 to the 1. Which triangulates the alpha and the omega. And I ask you, which of these is the midpoint? Did even Jesus have a midlife crisis? Was it the Pentecost? Was it his birth? Was it when he sat on the steps? They say he died when he was 33. Midlife would make that what now? 15, 16 and a half? 16 and a half? Jesus had a midlife crisis? Crisis Christos? Crisis? At 16 and a half? How many of y'all got that 16 and a half? But anyway, what's wrapped up in this whole equation is the idea that mathematics itself and geometry itself, therefore, everything, logic, logistics, linguistics, philology, definitely etymology, from the intellical, from the intellical, etymology, philology, to the teleological, from the intellical, the seed, to the seed's end, to the teleological, to the pole. There is a equation that's equal. And there's a midpoint. There's a middle. There's a focus. There's a focal point. Now, when we're talking about parabolas and parables, or when we're talking about hyperbolas and hyperboles, we can argue a center point. I hope you argue better than Socrates did. And Plato. The greatest rhetorician ever, besides Donald Trump. People don't realize Plato was Donald Trump. But anyway. That's enough for now.
Ooh.